You have been trying very hard lately to do this correctly, and I want you to notice that sentence before we go any further tonight. Trying to grieve correctly, trying to heal correctly, trying to react to your own life in a way that would look, from the outside, like proof that all the inner work has finally paid off. That effort is exhausting you far more than the actual growth ever would, and it has likely been exhausting you for longer than you have consciously noticed. What follows today is not a correction of your character. It is a correction of a single assumption you have been quietly carrying for some time, one that has made an otherwise natural process feel like a performance you keep almost failing. There is a very different way to measure whether this season is working, one that has nothing to do with how composed you manage to stay inside it. By the end of this message, you will have that different measure in hand, and a considerably gentler one than the one you have been quietly grading yourself against. Greetings, starseeds of Gaia. We greet you tonight as a small council from the star cluster your traditions have long called the Seven Sisters. We do not come with warning tonight, only with a recalibration we believe many of you have been quietly needing, and have perhaps been needing for considerably longer than this particular season alone. Understand this simply. You have been treating your own growth as a straight incline, something that should only ever trend upward once begun. This was never an accurate map of how any living thing actually grows, and holding yourself to an inaccurate map has cost you more peace than the growth itself ever should have. Consider your own breath for a moment, something you rarely think about because it requires no thought to continue. An inhale is not a failure of the exhale before it, and an exhale is not evidence that the inhale did not work. Each simply makes room for the other. Neither one is the destination. The rhythm itself is the living thing. Your growth works exactly this way, though almost nothing in your culture has taught you to expect it. An expansive season, full of clarity and forward motion, is naturally followed by a contraction, a pulling inward that can look, if you are only watching for upward movement, like backsliding. It is not backsliding, beloved one. It is the exhale your system requires before the next expansion becomes possible at all. A soul who only ever expanded without a single contraction to balance it would not be thriving. It would simply be holding its breath, and eventually holding a breath that long always costs more than it appears to save. Notice how naturally you already understand this in the body, even if your mind resists it in the soul. No one watching an athlete rest between efforts calls that rest a collapse of their training. No one watching a field lie fallow for a season calls the field unproductive. Rest between efforts is understood everywhere else in your life as part of the effort itself. It is only in your own emotional and spiritual growth that you have been taught to treat the pause as evidence of failure, rather than as the necessary other half of the rhythm. If this reframing is landing somewhere true in you right now, tell me in the comments which season of your own life you can now recognize as a contraction rather than a failure. There is a distinction the Council wants drawn clearly tonight, because so much unnecessary suffering comes from confusing these two words. Healed, as most of you use the term, implies a feeling disappears entirely, never to return. Evidence collected and filed as proof the work is finished. We offer you a different word instead: spacious. A spacious relationship with a difficult feeling does not require that feeling to vanish. It requires only that the feeling has more room to move through you than it once did, arriving, passing, and leaving again, without needing to reorganize your entire day around it. This single shift in language, small as it sounds, changes what you are actually working toward, and what you allow yourself to call progress along the way. By this measure, the return of an old reaction is not evidence you have failed to heal. It is simply a feeling passing through a container that has become considerably roomier than it used to be. Whether or not the feeling itself has fully retired, consider the difference between a small room and a large hall. both capable of holding the same loud sound. In the small room, that sound is overwhelming, bouncing off every wall, impossible to escape. In the large hall, the very same sound simply has more space to move through before it settles. The sound has not changed at all between the two. Only the room has changed. When people ask whether a feeling has finally gone away for good, they are usually really asking whether the room has grown large enough that the feeling no longer overwhelms them. That is the more honest and more achievable question to be asking. Picture, for a moment, a single stretch of land across many decades. Storms cross it, certainly, sometimes severe ones, and then clear skies return, sometimes for long stretches. No honest observer would look at a storm crossing that land and conclude the land itself had become a storm. The land remains the land. The weather simply moves across it, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, and eventually moves on. Your own character is the land, beloved one, not the weather. An old reaction moving through you again is a storm crossing familiar ground, not evidence that the ground itself has reverted to what it once was. You are allowed to notice a storm without concluding you have become the storm. This distinction alone will spare you an enormous amount of unnecessary shame in the months ahead. Land that has weathered many storms over many years is not the same land it was before the first one arrived, even though from a distance it may look unchanged. Each storm leaves the terrain slightly more capable of absorbing the next one. Channels worn just deep enough to direct the water more efficiently. Roots grown just strong enough to hold the soil more firmly in place. The land does not need to stop the storms from coming in order to demonstrate its own growth. It only needs to be measurably better equipped each time one arrives. Most guidance you have received about difficult feelings asks you to locate their story, their origin, their meaning. Tonight we offer something considerably simpler, and in our experience, considerably more effective in the actual moment a feeling arrives. When an old reaction surfaces, do not reach first for its story. Reach instead for its shape. Notice only this. Is it tight or loose? Is it moving or still? Does it sit high in the chest or low in the stomach? Nothing more than this, for a slow count of 10. No narrative required yet. Simply observe the shape the way you might observe weather moving across a window, with curiosity rather than urgency to explain it. Only after this brief, wordless noticing, if you still feel the need, may you turn toward its story. Most of you will find by that point that the story has already loosened considerably on its own, simply from having been witnessed without commentary first. The commentary itself, we have observed, is often what keeps a feeling stuck longer than the feeling ever intended to stay. We offer one further refinement to this practice because the instinct to narrate is strong and returns quickly. If words arrive uninvited while you are simply observing the shape of a feeling, you need not fight them or push them away. Simply notice that words have arrived, the way you might notice a passing car outside a window, and return your attention to the shape itself. This is not a battle to be won through force. It is a gentle, repeated redirection, practiced as many times in a single minute as it needs to be practiced, without any of those redirections counting as a failure of the practice itself. Some of you listening tonight will notice, honestly, that none of what we have described yet feels true in your own experience. The old reactions still feel enormous. The container does not yet feel roomier at all. We want to address you directly and specifically. There is no ranking among souls moving through this passage. No early arrivers who are somehow more evolved than those still finding their footing. The land takes the time it takes to develop the particular resilience a given storm requires of it. Comparing your own timeline to anyone else's, including the timeline described in this very message, is simply weather compared against different weather over entirely different terrain. It tells you nothing true about either. Some of you are standing on terrain that has weathered considerably harsher storms than the terrain of the person seated beside you. and it is simply unreasonable to expect identical resilience from unlike ground. This is not a discouraging observation. It is, if you allow it to be, a genuinely relieving one. You are not required to have arrived at the same point as anyone else, because you were never standing on the same ground to begin with. Your own particular history, your own particular set of storms, requires its own particular pace of weathering, and that pace was never something to apologize for. One final piece, because so many of you quietly measure your own readiness against a calendar that was never actually built to measure it. A wound does not heal on the same schedule, a bill comes due, and a soul does not integrate an experience on the same schedule. A season changes on your calendar. Calendar time and readiness time are simply different instruments, measuring different things, and confusing the two have convinced many of you that you are behind on something no clock was ever actually tracking. You are not behind. You are exactly as far along as the actual work itself has completed, and that figure has never once matched a date on any calendar for anyone in any lifetime. Consider how strange it would sound to tell a tree it was behind schedule for growing its rings, or to tell a river it was running late in carving its canyon. These processes are understood correctly to unfold on their own internal schedule, entirely indifferent to the external calendar marking days around them. Somewhere along the way, human beings alone were taught to measure their own internal unfolding against an external calendar that was never designed to track it, and this mismatch has manufactured an enormous amount of suffering that never needed to exist at all. Let the calendar keep its own time. Let your own readiness keep an entirely separate one, unhurried by the other, and trust that the two were never required to agree. Whatever language you use to hold what was shared tonight, beloved one, we want to leave you with this. You were never failing at a straight climb. You were breathing, the way every living thing that grows must breathe, expanding and contracting in a rhythm no honest observer would call brokenness. The weather moving through you tonight, whatever shape it takes, is simply weather. It is not a verdict on the land beneath it. There is a simple question worth carrying with you after this message ends, one you might return to the next time an old reaction surfaces, and the old shame tries to arrive alongside it. Not, what is wrong with me for still feeling this? Instead, simply, what shape is this feeling right now? And how much room does it actually have to move through before it passes on its own? That single substitution, practiced patiently over time, changes far more than it appears capable of changing at first. Until we meet again in this way, let the storms pass without needing your permission or your explanation, and trust the land you actually are underneath them all.